By the way, I am Honorable Modulamin Biba, and I am a member for Banjul North constituency and also the co-chair of this important meeting today.
Honorable Suleiman Sabo, member of Central constituency, member of Gender Committee, co-chair.
Honorable Abdullah Sise, Deputy Leader and member of the committee.
Good morning, Jimmy Mbala, member of the committee.
Good morning, Honorable Anthony, member of the committee.
Good morning, my name is Patricia.
Good morning, my name is Mohamed Diallo, UNICEF.
Good morning, my name is Daniel Okello, UNICEF.
Good morning, my name is Dr. Yahya Maberiba.
Good morning, my name is Diana Fayouli, Executive Director of Action International Academy. Good morning, my name is Maymuna Young, representing Women.
Good morning, my name is Halima Pujala Disu. I'm currently working with the National Aid Secretariat. We're here representing the NGBV.
Good morning, my name is Dr. Babani Dafe, Kanefin General Hospital, and I'm working for Network Against Gender Based Violence.
Good morning, my name is Falu Sow, the National Coordinator of the Network Against Gender Based Violence.
Good morning, I'm Lamin Fati, National Coordinator of Child Protection Alliance.
Good morning, my name is Fanta Bani, Child Protection Alliance.
Good morning, my name is Solomon Atibuni, Child Protection Alliance.
Good morning, my name is Maurice Hiller, committee clerk.
Good morning, I am Babu Kalbai from the Network Against Gender Based Violence.
Good morning, I'm Executive Director from Action Aid. Good morning, I'm Sarah Napoya.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I believe now we know who is in the house, and I also pray that we have a very successful consultation at the end of the day. Before going further, once again I will want to welcome each and everyone present here. And just to inform you that you, the stakeholders, are here to meet the Select Committee once again. That is the Joint Committee on Health and Gender. And we are here to allow the stakeholders to submit their position papers, and also if they have anything that they want to see out of the committee in terms of evidence that they believe it will help the joint committee in terms of when we are preparing our joint report, so that we'll be able to present a very comprehensive report at the end of the day to the plenary. Just a way of reminder, this joint committee was given the mandate by the plenary on the 21st of March to consult all the relevant stakeholders concerning a bill that was introduced, a private member bill that was introduced in Parliament by a member of Parliament. So in that regards, we deem it necessary and part of the all-inclusiveness approach in Parliament to make sure that whatever we do, we must talk to each and everyone, especially the relevant stakeholders, before we can come up with a decision, which is very important. So be rest assured that we are here together, and we are also in this together, and whatever you believe that it will be useful to the committee, we will surely appreciate it as a committee to take it from you, so that at the end of the day, like I said, we will be able to produce a very comprehensive, or provide a very comprehensive report for the plenary, so that a decision can be taken. So in that regards, yes. Thank you for this observation. With UNICEF, the representatives, I believe according to our standing orders, you can only serve as observers.
Yes.
In this meeting.
You're right.
Yes.
You're right.
Because according to the meeting today, we have already scheduled you for another meeting. But notwithstanding, it's important that you can be here to be observers. So in that regard, we just go to the meeting proper now. I will just want to give the floor to the stakeholders as indicated on the letter sent to you. If you have any position paper, you can share with the committee. And if you also have anything that you want to share with the committee, we will surely appreciate it. So in that regards, I will just have to, yeah, the co-chair also want to say something before we proceed.
Yeah. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
This is a very important dialogue as far as the bill is concerned. We all know the Women's Amendment Bill created a lot of talks, debates, engagements as far as culture is concerned, as far as religion is concerned, as far as health is concerned. So that was why it was ideal for the parliamentarians to refer it to a joint committee to do further engagement with the stakeholders. At the end of the day, we can reach a consensus, or we can see how best we can improve on our relationship or advocacy as far as the whole issue is concerned. Now, your coming today is so much important to our cause because we want to hear from you with evidence and position papers. At the end of the day, these position papers will be reviewed, and as the chair said, as the co-chair said, this is what will be shared with the rest of the members of the parliament. So we hope at the end of the day we will achieve, and questions also will be asked for clarity, for further clarification. So we thank you for your presence.
Thank you very much, co-chair. I believe things are very clear right now. So what we're going to do without wasting time is just to allow the stakeholders to start their presentation if they have any, and also to share with us their position. So we can start with which organization? CPA.
Good morning to the honorable members of the Committee on Gender and Health, my colleagues from the civil society organization, and other relevant stakeholders who are present here today. On behalf of the Secretary, I want to acknowledge and appreciate the fact that we are honored by the invitation, but also to proud on the fact that the Committee on Gender and Health is able to identify the Secretariat as one of the key and relevant stakeholders when it comes to the issue of child protection, particularly the right of girls and women in the country. Having said that, we have agreed to submit this position paper after this engagement and consultation, also because we want to inform the position paper as to what has been discussed here. When this issue of the FGSC came to the National Assembly as a debate for the first time, we have been keenly following up the developments. And it was quite challenging for every relevant stakeholder that is into, whether it's the National Assembly, whether it's within the civil society, whether it's the government. But again, also we took time to review the bill when the private bill is passed and then shared with us. And we looked at the objectives and the reasons as to why it is so important that the Women Amendment Act of 2015 is repealed. And the reason bill raised, we have highlighted about, the bill highlighted few areas that I want to talk on. One is around the issue of it is as part of our religious practices, particularly in code, we'll say for religious purification. Having considered this, so it's to look at the merit and demerit of the bill in terms of the argument it brings about. I am of the opinion and also the belief that the opinion paper in terms of religious purification is very weak, bearing in mind that when we talk about the issue of religious purification, there are predetermined conditions in which one needs to fulfill before you talk about the list of purification. Now, even the basic religion teaching will tell you, you cannot even do your proper salah if you don't do ablution. And it gives option that you can't do your worshiping if you don't do ablution. And there are options which you could be followed at a prescribed condition. Again, also too, we looked at the issue of purification in terms of having the obligation and the mandatory. What is mandatory in our religion? That to the extent that it has exempted women who are seeing their menstruation, or who has given birth not to perform their religious rite because of the issue of what? Purification. So considering that again, in order to testify that the argument brought in that bill is weak, I would be very happy, and I think also the stakeholders here also will be very happy to be informed or to be enlightened that there are specific provisions in both, whether it's the Quran, Surah in the Quran, or it's an authenticated hadith that clearly stated that a woman cannot fulfill her religious right if she is not circumcised. And I think this is important as we go through this discussion to reflect on the religious perspective. Again, we talked about the issue of the bill further went on to talk about that the bill is in contradiction of the Constitution when it comes to Section 32, even though it does not make any reference to the issue of culture. But Section 32 is very clear about it. That as much as it permits each and everyone to freely practice your cultural practices, but it qualifies it to say what? Within the content terms of what? The Constitution of the Gambia. And it further went on to say, provided that it does not impinge on the right and liberty of individuals. Bearing in mind that provision, the Constitution clearly makes it clear. When you go to Section 21 of the Constitution, it clearly stipulated where it prohibited any individual person exposed to degrading treatment. Nothing is more degrading than the discussion, the words that we hear against women, sexuality. Just a few days ago, on TikTok, I listened to an imam giving a sermon to say, if a woman is not circumcised, you will run and break the door. That if a woman is not circumcised, it becomes what? A woman who cannot be faithful to a man, one man. Nothing is more insulting, nothing is more degrading to a human being. And what the bill clearly stipulates, and is now trying to portray, is the fact that we are going back to the olden days, where the woman's decision, the woman's right to dignity and her body is become what an issue of subjection to male approval. So we need to consider this. Again, when you talk about the issue of contradiction of the Constitution, the bill itself has contradicted provisions of the Constitution. I know the argument is raised that majority of Gambians are Muslim. As a result of that, if you bring a law that is not promoting that right to cultural practices, even though we are condition qualified that those practices should not impede on the fundamental right of people, including the right to health. So this is important for us to discuss. Coming down to, we need to ask ourselves as committee, as relevant stakeholders, the reason, the why, the pros and the cons of the practice. If you are convinced that yes, it's a weak argument, would you want to say, well, something that is a weak argument that does not have real basis to pin on the religious perspective, would you allow it to endanger the lives and welfare of our girls and women? I am not a health expert, I'm not a medical person, but I don't need a medical person to tell me the implication of FGC. Sometimes we tend to take it as it's only women, but every loving husband to your spouse who has undergone this and is still going through implications or complications, then you are a victim. So I don't need anybody to tell me their implication. I live with it. For 7 years, I have my first child. Up to now, I could not have the second one. But I was there when she was giving birth. Over few hours, she has been pushing, nothing was coming up. Because already where she was already circumcised or cut, the elasticity of the genitalia is no more coming. It's not flexible. a man in front of your wife, your spouse, the person that you love in pain, and could not deliver because something had happened to her. That was in the end. The worst was to come, where she was taught of. And you know, if you are tearing of something, you do it with calculation. But there was no calculation. The scissors was just put and lifted up, just to allow the child to come out. This was a woman that was giving birth, that was bringing life to the world. But you are subjecting her to a condition where she could pass away. She could die. Now we need to be mindful, and I want to remind this committee and relevant stakeholders here. The issue of FGC cannot be an issue that we can discuss within the national framework. Bearing in mind that the Gambia as a state party has been gone through ratification of regional and international legal instruments, taking the obligation to protect, to respect, to fulfill all fundamental rights as inscribed through those instruments that they have ratified, notably the UNCRC. You go to the United Nations Convention of the Right of the Child, which Gambia has ratified in 1990. You go to section 21 of that provision, it's clearly stipulated there that issue of traditional cultural practice that are harmful must be discouraged, and government as a state party, Gambia as a state party to this treaty commitment must be able to ensure that they do everything within their reasonable measures to ensure that, you know, they advocate, to educate, ensure that laws are in place to protect that. You go to section 24 of the African Charter on the Right and Welfare of the Child. You have the similar provision around that. You go to the protocol to the right of women, to the African Charter on the right to human and people's rights. This was a protocol document that was developed and adopted by African parliamentarians in 1999. Came into force in 2003, and that protocol clearly stipulated again that there should be, the state must be able to be committed to ensure that they still not they discourage and work around the issue of what? To demystify.
Can I make an observation?
Yes, please.
Yes, you know, since we have different stakeholders.
Yes.
And I believe all of them will have something to present.
Yes.
If you have a position paper, if you have a position paper, we make basis of time, because time is of essence, and members also will like to ask questions. So if you want to open it to you with all your experience in child protection and all the legislation, international and national, maybe if Farooq comes, another person comes, it will take us the whole day, and we are time bound. So I'm making a suggestion.
No.
We have.
We are just appealing.
They don't conclude.
No.
He made a suggestion.
He made an observation.
He made an observation. I have a counter observation.
You can come back.
Don't counter, please.
No.
No.
We want to hear.
Jimmy, allow me. You will have your chance. Just give him the floor.
All right. Please. It's an observation. I believe, as far as this meeting is concerned, all of us have a lot to say. And we can even spend, not even the entire day, but we can spend days here just to discuss about this issue. But let us also understand that a meeting time schedule was given to us. And like he said, members will also ask questions for clarity. So we can explain, but let us also consider the time, please. It's just an appeal.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I respect the observation, but I think it's important for him as the lead person from CPA to bring those facts.
Sure.
Because all the institutions sitting down here, what he is saying probably is going to be the same thing what somebody else is going to say. So what he is saying will enrich the discussion that we are going to have, and that will help us to move. Then we will have possibility from all the other institutions, and then we will move on. So I think we give him chance to.
So that is why we are not stopping you, but just consider. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much, Honorable. I am mindful of the time that is, and I was going to go summarize it now.
Go ahead.
So, sorry, Chair, can I observe?
Yes.
We are asked to call witness to come and testify before us. We may need a position paper, but what they are explaining verbally will help members also to be equipped with our report. So I think if we cannot have all of them today, it's better we ask for an extension. But let us allow them to exhaust what they were saying, because they are helping us.
That is also fine if it is the decision of the members. So, members, are you saying that if we cannot finish today, we can invite them another day?
We can finish.
We can even finish.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I promise not to take longer. Right. So having to, just because I was making reference to regional and international commitment, which also inform the landscape when it comes to issues of human rights protection in this country. So it is important that when we discuss about issues of human rights, we don't only discuss within the confinement of the Gambia as a country. Right? Because it is important that to note that when a country ratifies any of these instruments, you cannot undo. You cannot also introduce any law that is contradicting to the provisions in whether it's the UNCRC, whether it's in the African Charter, whether it's in the African Protocol, whether it's on the African and human rights, because we have already explored that. Then again also too, when you look at the commitment and the obligation on the state, we already know the state has three, the state has a machinery which is the government. The government has three organs. And obviously this particular organ here, the National Assembly, is the legislative arm of the government. So therefore, in terms of keeping up those obligations and commitments, the National Assembly cannot exclude itself within that. What would have suggest, from my understanding here, would be in this room here, one thing we have common with the National Assembly, with this select committee, is what is an oversight function, to hold the duty bearers to account. We would have been very pleased to say to have an issue of ratification or alignment of the laws taken by the state at regional or international level to come to the National Assembly to say, you know what, we want you to pressurize the state to find out as to why Gambia is not aligning its laws as to the commitment taken at the region. Because this is aspiration. This is what we want to have. This is the level of playing ground that we want to have in the country. It is unfortunate, as much as the meeting is important, but it is also unfortunate that having considered all the issues affecting women in this country, we are having such a meeting that is not looking into how do we expand and improve condition of women and girls in this country, but rather than to think about something that is so regressive that will open up what we call further violation on the fundamental right of women. Go to section 33 of the Constitution, discrimination. So having said this, we want to implore on this committee and member of the National Assembly that we have been engaging with regional and international treaty bodies. And I know obviously equally the National Assembly must have read correspondence coming from UN, coming from ECOWAS. There's a reason as to why they are coming. So as we go through this journey, we will put our position to say the issue of repealing the bill had some dire consequences. And when we talk about the issue of consequences, we know too well. I have heard where people say, you know, why don't we put so much time into other issues affecting women? 98% of all this development initiative in this country around women, children, health issues, we know that these are purely being funded by international partners. And all the capacity building with your technical training and support, these are mostly done by international partners. And when a commitment is taken at those treaty levels, we have what we call accountability of result. That the Gambia cannot escape this at regional level, cannot escape it at international level. The last UPR we have, that is the Universal Periodic Review, for Gambia to report on the status of human rights in the Gambia. This issue was clearly stipulated again, that even though the law was there, the issue of enforcement was not coming. And the recommendation clearly stipulated that the Gambia as a state party must be able to ensure that when laws are put in place, they are effectively enforced. And again also too, the National Assembly should have been in a position to advocate for effective enforcement of those laws, but equally also too, how do we ensure the government as a state, the government that is machinery to the state, to fully invest in the life and welfare of women in this country. On that note, I want to submit that we are totally against repealing the Women Amendment Act, bearing in mind that this is a contradiction of Section 21 of the Constitution of the Gambia. It's an infringement on Section 33 of the Constitution of the Gambia, is an infringement of Article 19 of the Children Act of the Gambia that talks about how do we ensure that we deal with the issue of cultural practices that are harmful. Again, we are setting a precedent. The decision from here determines a lot. The precedent would be, and we have had them, say the next minute would be to repeal the law on child marriage. So precedent that we are taking up, we need to reflect on those things to make sure that at the end of the day, our advocacy issue collectively, that each and every one of us here is duty bound. So parliamentarians cannot say, we want to just go by it because our people want it. But no, each and every one of us here has a role to go back to the community and educate those people because it's there in the provisions. The best we will tell you, the best decision you will do not repeal it. The not too good decision you will do, you want to amend it, but when you amend it still now, you cannot create a room to legalize the slightest degree of human rights violation. On that note, I want to say thank you for giving me the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for that submission. Can you also share with us your position paper?
I would, sir.
Yeah, please. Honorable members, I will appeal if we can allow other stakeholders to do their presentation so that you can just note what you want to ask. Then we can ask them after their presentation. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. So can we now allow the Network Against Gender-Based Violence, Mr. Fabi, to take the floor?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairpersons of the Joint Committee, Honorable members of the Joint Committee here present, distinguished subject matter specialists, observers from UNICEF, my colleague from the civil society organization, all protocols respectfully and duly observed. We want to say that this is our position paper as a network against gender-based violence. And I want to make it clear that when we say the network against gender-based violence, we are talking about over 54 organizations that include NGOs, CSOs, women's rights groups, and youth groups across the length and breadth of this nation, the Gambia. Also, because the debate has been there for a long time, and I've had National Assembly members request for evidence, because that's what you want to have, that's what you want to see to ensure that it helps you in making your decision. Today we've decided to bring you evidence. We will submit to you evidence from researches conducted in this country by our own doctors in our own hospitals of the Gambia. We will also present to you case studies that were also seen by doctors of the Gambia in our hospital on our Gambian women. And we will present to you pictures and everything to show you that FGM is harmful to the health of the country. In reading our position paper, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before I proceed, I want to say that I'm here with colleagues, Dr. Dafe, who will be doing a presentation on the case studies also, and then midwife Halimatu Jallo. They will be making presentation on the evidence base, but I will highlight some of those things also in my position paper. And we will submit also the research documents to you. We will submit some policy briefs where the documents are briefs for you to help you understand what we are talking about. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, FGM is defined to refer to partial or total removal or external female genitalia or other injuries to the female genitalia organs for non-medical reasons. So any procedure that is conducted on the female genitalia for non-medical reasons is what WHO defined as FGMC. FGMC is a harmful practice that violates the human rights and undermines the health and well-being of girls and women worldwide. Also, according to WHO, it is estimated that over 200 million girls and women worldwide have undergone this practice of FGM, and approximately 3 million girls are at risk of undergoing the practice. Distinguished honorable members, FGM has different types. You have type 1, which is excision of the pubis with or without excision of part or all of the clitoris. That's the type 1. You have type 2, which is a partial or total removal of the clitoris and the labia minora with or without excision of the labia majora. Then you have the type 3, which is infibulation of part or all of the external genitalia and stitching and narrowing of the vaginal opening. So these are the 3 types, and there is an unclassified type, which is type 4, just for us to understand what we are talking about. I am highlighting this because I am going to highlight to you from the demographic health survey that is conducted nationwide by Gambia Bureau of Statistics in the Gambia, that has shown the type that is most prevalent in this country, so that you understand what our women and girls are undergoing. So probably that will help you in making a decision in this area. In the Gambia, FGM is also referred to as female circumcision by the Women's Amendment Act 2015, as commonly known in Gambian communities. According to the Demographic Health Survey, GBOS 2019-2020, 73% of women aged 15 to 49 are circumcised in the Gambia. 73% of our women, according to this national survey, are circumcised in the Gambia. A slight decrease from the 2013 Demographic Health Survey, which was 75. So despite national efforts to eliminate the practice in the Gambia for almost 4 decades, because the Gambia started campaigning, advocating, and raising awareness to address this practice since in the 80s when Women's Bureau was established. FGMC persists in many Gambian communities due to deep-rooted traditional, social, and religious beliefs. According to the Demographic Health Survey, again 2019-2020, the most common type of FGM in the Gambia, this is the study that is done by the Gambia Bureau of Statistics in the Gambia, and it's a national survey. It has revealed that type 2, which entails not only cutting the clitoris, but cutting also, most of the time, the labia minora, is the most prevalent type of FGM in the Gambia. Okay? And this type has 73% of our women has undergone this procedure. So that is very high. 73% of the women of the Gambia who has undergone FGM has been subjected to type 2 FGM. So those who are saying type 1 is the most prevalent, that the Gambia is practicing type 1, they are proven wrong by this national survey. 17% of the Gambian population, women and girls, also underwent the type 3. So if you add 73 plus 17, that will give you about 90% of the Gambian women are undergoing either type 2 or type 3 FGM, which are serious types of FGMs that have serious implications and health consequences on our women. 17 and only 1%, according to this study, is undergoing type 1. Just 1%. So if people start saying that most of our Gambian women and girls are undergoing type 1, this study has proven them wrong. Distinguished honorable members, thus the DHS 2019-2020 confirmed to us that more than 90% of our women and girls who undergo FGM have been subjected to type 2 or type 3, which both have serious health consequences on them. FGM poses several physical, psychological, and emotional consequences for affected individuals. Evidence from research is conducted in the Gambia and other parts of the world have also shown that the practice violates women and girls' sexual and reproductive health and rights, including rights to choice and dignity. Immediate risk of this practice includes severe pain, it includes bleeding, infection, and even death in some cases. While long-term injuries or complications includes chronic pain, urinary problems, sexual dysfunction, obstetric complications, which I'm going to discuss, and I'm sure Dr. Dafe will buttress on that, and psychological trauma on the victims. Honorable members, in 2017, a clinical research on the obstetric outcome of FGM on pregnant women in the Gambia was commissioned in this country by the network and in partnership with ActionAid International, the Gambia, and in partnership with the Ministry of Health. The study was conducted in 4 major health facilities, which includes Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, which is the biggest hospital in this country, Jammeh Foundation for Peace Hospital, now known as Bundung Maternal and Child Health Hospital, Birkama District Hospital, Bansang General Hospital. These are 4 major health facilities or major hospitals in the Gambia. The reason was obvious. They were selected because they wanted to ensure that they have both women from both rural and urban areas to be part of this study to know how FGM impacts on women who have undergone FGM and who are also going on labor. The study was done by Gambian doctors and nurses, midwives, and senior nurses and senior doctors of this country, working at the above-named hospital. The on-site investigators were Dr. Nene Bah and Dr. Awaja of Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. You have Dr. Dado Jabi of Jammeh Foundation for Peace Hospital, which is now known Bundung Maternal and Child Health Hospital, Dr. Lucas Jata of Birkama District Hospital, and Dr. Mamadou T. Nyasi of Bansang Hospital, who is currently the Deputy Director of Health Services. They were supported by 16 senior nurse midwives who were working in the labor of these hospitals in the Gambia. And these Gambian doctors and midwives were trained and guided to do this study by specialists, which include Dr. Patrick Idoko and a gynecologist, and Dr. Mustafa Bitey, who is currently the Director of Health Services of the Gambia, who is not only a gynecologist but also a research clinician. And both of them were working at that time at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. We also have Dr. Olubuko Idoko, who is also a pediatrician and a research clinician who also supported this research, and she is an expert, a specialist from MRC, among others. The total of 1,569 women participated in this study. 1,569 women who are Gambians were seen in this study. And 23% had no FGM because they wanted to compare the impact of FGM on those who have not gone through FGM, those who have undergone FGM1, those who have undergone FGM2, FGM3, and the like, so that you do the comparison to be able to analyze and state the evidence. So 77% of the participants in this research have undergone FGM, and 23.8% had undergone FGM type 1, 44.8 had undergone FGM type 2, and 8.4 had undergone FGM type 3 and 4. And we have only 6 cases of type 4 FGM who were recruited in this study. The age range of the study participants was between 18 to 46 years. The reason is we wanted to also remove the issue of saying that the effect was as a result of age, because we all know that if you are 18 years and above, you are an adult, and then the issue of being a child is what has caused the consequences of what happens to you would then be defeated. According to the report of this clinical study on FGM done in the Gambia, and this research, let me say, is published not only in the Gambia but internationally, because it was a clinical and a scientific research. Women with FGM are more likely to have blood loss of 500 milliliter or more after delivery. So the research have clearly shown that women who have undergone FGM are most likely to lose a lot of blood during their delivery. And the severe the type, the more blood the woman will lose. And therefore, after the DHS has confirmed that our women are undergoing FGM type 2 and type 3, you would definitely know that a lot of our women would be losing a lot of blood, because what they are, the procedures that they are doing to them is type 2 and type 3. The second outcome of the research, women with FGM are more likely to have undergone operation during childbirth also, the research has also revealed, with the risk increase based on the severity of the FGM. So based on, because the study, like I said, compared the 3 types of FGM and those who have not undergone FGM. So it has shown that if somebody has undergone FGM1, you are more at a risk of undergoing operation during delivery than the one who has not undergone FGM. And if you have undergone FGM2, you are in fact at a more higher risk, and the more severe the type of FGM, the more you would be at a risk of being operated to help you deliver. Most women suffer in silence. Also, the study has revealed that most of our women suffer in silence because they hesitate to express pain related to childbirth and also FGM, noting that open discussion of sexual and reproductive health is hindered by our social norms in the Gambia. So it's obvious that most of our women wouldn't talk much about how FGM is affecting them, simply because it's against our norms and values as a woman to talk about how you are affected sexually and reproductive on a sexual and reproductive basis. Women are not the primary decision makers on matters concerning their own sexual and reproductive rights. And I think this discussion has shown that as well. It's not the women who are pushing for the repealing of this bill. It's not the women who have been talking or championing this. So the research is also saying that it's not the women who decides about their reproductive and sexual health. This decision is mostly in the hands of men who want certain things. Our position as a network, like I said and I repeat, of not only one institution but over 54 organizations across the country, is that a larger CSO in the Gambia is that we, as the largest CSOs in the Gambia, is for the ban on FGM to be sustained. We are saying, as CSO coalition, that the ban on FGM should be sustained, and this debate or discussions to repeal the Women Amendment Act 2015 should not be passed or should be dismissed. Based on the evidence present above, and also based on the do no harm principle of the medical profession, FGM should not also be medicalized. We shouldn't be thinking of medicalizing FGM because the evidence is there to show that it is harmful. Secondly, also, from a medical principle, no medical practitioner should engage on any practice that will cause harm to people. And hence, all the different types of FGM has been proven by research done in the Gambia, in our hospital, on our women, that they are all harmful to women and girls. Therefore, that defeats the purpose of talking of medicalizing FGM. The National Assembly should listen to the voices of reason and consider the health implications highlighted by professional health workers and reject the Women Amendment Bill 2024. This will empower affected individuals and communities, strengthen the health, right, and dignity of survivors, and facilitate the eradication of the practice in due course. Honorable members, various justifications, both socially and religiously, have been attached to the practice of FGM. However, the reasons given cannot be justified considering the evidence that has been presented before you today, which showed the practice violates women's sexual and reproductive health and rights. As a human rights network, NGBV and all the CSO coalitions promotes and defends rights to religious practice, but the campaign to not lift the ban on FGM is not an anti-Islamic, and we want to make that very clear. It's not an anti-Islamic campaign. Rather, it is based on the Islamic teaching of do no harm. We all know that our religion, Islam, is a religion that preaches peace, is a religion that preaches no harm to anybody. So therefore, based on that Islamic principle, we also say no harm to our women and our girls. Furthermore, from the Islamic point of view, Islam prioritizes health, and we all know that. And this is why Muslims who are healthy, who are not healthy enough to fast or not perform Hajj, are exempted from this religious obligation. We all know that if you go to hospital and because your health, you have a health problem and the doctors advise that you should not fast or not go for pilgrimage to Mecca or an Hajj, we all know that Islam permits you not to do it. And those are not only obligations in Islam, but they are also pillars of fundamental pillars of Islam. So if one can abandon an obligation that is a fundamental pillar of Islam, I see no reason why we cannot abandon a cultural practice, or if some people associated being a sunnah, we cannot abandon that if doctor says it's affecting our health. So therefore, in our quest to address FGM problems, the network and the CSO coalition call on the National Assembly and the executive of this country to 1. Ensure the Women's Amendment Act 2015 banning FGM remains as a law in this country to protect Gambian women and girls from the practice. 2. Amplify community engagement and awareness raising on the health consequences of FGM to empower communities, constituencies, and individuals to abandon the practice. Thirdly, strengthen policy and other law enforcement agencies to maintain and implement the Women's Amendment Act 2015 to deter communities from practicing FGM and protect women and girls from the harmful effects of FGM. In that regard, it is imperative on government of the Gambia in general and the National Assembly to be precise as lawmakers and representatives of people, including women and girls, to protect their fundamental right to health. Over the past few months, the Gambia has been tested on the FGM issue, as we were tested many times in the past, especially during the impasse after the 2016 presidential election.
Mr. Paul, just an observation.
I'm just wrapping.
You can wrap up, please.
So, we as peace-loving people, we passed this test in the past, and I believe we will pass this one. Today we are tested again, and as a primary duty bearer, the National Assembly, we urge you to look at the best interests of our women and daughters by critically considering the plight and rights of innocent souls, our little girls, who are vulnerable and could not protect themselves or make a choice for themselves in this matter. We appeal to you to selfishly think of them while you make a decision on this case and be guided by the best interest principle which is enshrined in the Children's Act 2005. In conclusion, the National Assembly has a tough responsibility, we understand. A responsibility that includes shaping society, its cultures and behavior. FGM is a deeply rooted cultural practice, and many also argue it's a religious one. However, the decision National Assembly members should take is, in this matter, has been made by the 5th legislature already, which is banning FGM. Today, the 6th legislature has responsibility to maintain that ban in order to protect our women and girls. I submit my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Palu. Before just going further, just for clarity, it is the 6th legislature.
You said the 5th legislature.
The 5th legislature.
No, it's this 4th.
It's the 4th.
Yeah, the 4th.
Yeah. So we
it was the 4th legislature that
banned it, and this
banned.
is the 5th.
Yeah,
This is the 6th.
This is the 6th.
This is the 6th.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's an interval of
1 5.
But notwithstanding, thank you very much for that insightful presentation. I believe all what you said here today is in this position paper, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now we just allow young women to do their submission. Sir? The mic, yes,
Are you presenting?
We want to present, like I said before I start, we have some evidence to present based on some case studies that we have done. So please, it's going to be short. It's going to be projected.
Do you already connect to the...
Yes, it's already connected.
Okay, then
Yes, I have an observation. If it is coming from the same network, for time reason, why can't we allow the other people, if there is time, we get back to that?
Now, let us just see the images that they want to show us, then we proceed. So that you'll be in line in terms of what you want to ask.
Yes.
So that you will not miss anything.
Where is the IT man? It was already on.
It's not on.
The project.
Can we allow the lady from Teen Young Women to before they do the presentation? Sir, can you please come? Can you please hand over the mic to the then let the IT man set up the place and so that we can see.
Move.
Okay, Madam Chair, you can go ahead.
Good morning, Honorable National Assembly members and colleagues from the civil society organizations. So I said previously, I am Deng Bonejeng. I'm a legal practitioner, but I'm also here representing Pink Young Women today. So we'll be brief with our position paper because some of the information that we have has been covered by FALU. So to begin, our position is simple, and it remains that female circumcision is a harmful cultural practice and it has no place in a progressive society as we're trying to build in the Gambia. And secondly, despite its severe socioeconomic implications, it remains prevalent and deeply entrenched social practice in many parts of the Gambia. And as research has indicated, one of the areas where it's most prevalent is in the Upper River region, LRR, and West Coast region. The practice not only violates fundamental human rights, but it also perpetuates discriminative attitudes and economic disparities that hinder social progress. In terms of the data, as already presented by FALU, 73% of women and girls, I think it's important to emphasize girls because if you're below 18, you're a girl. So women and girls between the ages of 15 to 49, 73%. 0 to 14 years old, 46%. That is almost half of children below the 14 and below who have undergone a type of FGM, whether it's type 1, 2, or 3. So on the socio-economic implications of FGM, which is what we're going to focus on, the first aspect that we're looking at is discrimination and social marginalization as an implication of FGM. So anecdotal evidence in the Gambia shows that uncut women face discrimination when they live in communities, practicing communities, or when they are married into practicing communities. They are ostracized from social gatherings. They are subjected to derogatory names such as Solima. And the marginalization extends to exclusion from important events, but also opposing of marriages that involve a woman who is uncut into a family of a family that practices FGM. Mothers who have not undergone female circumcision often see their children devalued within society, but also mothers who have undergone FGM but have an opposing stance now that they no longer wish to engage in the practice, also face discrimination within their communities, and the lives of their children are threatened because there's always a threat that they will be subject to FGM because it is a cultural practice. So these are forms of discrimination or socioeconomic discriminations that women and girls face. Secondly, we have low socioeconomic development indicators. And this briefly just says that out of the 30 countries where FGM is practiced, 20 of them are categorized as the least developed countries in the world. Gambia is one of those 20 countries. This signals a possible link between socioeconomic development indicators for individuals, families, and the country, and the prevalence of the practice. Now, another implication is child valuation and marriageability status. One of the reasons why FGM is practiced is to ensure that when girls get married, they are virgins, right? So this leads to especially type 3 FGM, where the girl child is infibulated to prevent them from engaging in any sexual act before their marriage. Due to the light in which circumcised girls are viewed in practicing communities, female circumcision is seen as an investment by parents to prepare their girls for the marriage market. Because we observe, or we know that in our communities, when a girl is married and she is found to be a virgin, they are given some form of reward, right? We see they're given gold chain, they're given money. It basically increases your value, right? Your marriage relative value. So that is one of the reasons why FGM is practiced. So it is a method that is perceived to help preserve the virginity of girls, thus earning them honor and pride once married. And one of the links also is to prevent teenage pregnancy. But when we look within our communities, if we're honest to ourselves, we realize that whether a girl has undergone FGM or not, it doesn't prevent them from being pregnant, because the two are not the same, right? So this marriageability factor continues to propel the objectification of girls and women as commodities and not complete human beings with rights, needs, aspirations, and a desire to contribute to the growth and advancement of their families, communities, and countries. And we also have financial burden on families and communities. So while the act of cutting itself may not involve a lot of cost, the ceremony that comes after the cutting and the initiation can be very expensive, especially for low-income families that engage in this practice. So that is also an economic implication of the practice. These expenses will cover cost of gifts for the girl, and in some instances, the girl's mother, the guests that attend the ceremony. These expenses could be directed towards essential costs such as education, healthcare, or other needs of the family. Now, one of the most important implications is the cost implication of FGM on the country's economy, right? The WHO developed a system that is called the cost calculator. So what the cost calculator does is that it assesses the economic effect of certain practices on the country's economy. One of the issues dealt with or addressed by this cost calculator is the economic effect of FGM. WHO estimates that in the Gambia, if the practice continues from now until 2047, 1.3 million girls will be subject to FGM. Now, those 1.3 million girls will live with the health implications or health complications of FGM. And this would cost the Gambia $8.4 million per year to take care of. We know this is the case because most families in this country are low income. So when you suffer certain health complications, yes, so the figure is $8.4 million US dollars per year from now to 2047 if the practice continues. And the prediction is that 1.3 million girls would have undergone the practice from now to 2047. Is that okay, Honorable Jawara?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And if the practice is completely eradicated, the estimate is that 870,000 children will be saved from FGM, and this would reduce the cost by 5.7 million US dollars per year. That means the Gambia would be spending about $2.something million a year to deal with the health complications of FGM. So we see that this actually has a cost that will be borne by the government of the Gambia. So if the current trend persists, the number of girls and women subjected to female circumcision will significantly rise in the next 15 years, thus resulting in a rise in the national cost for healthcare provision to them. And then finally, we have diminished quality of life and limited performance in the labor market. There's ample proof that FGM causes lifelong health complications, and these complications can affect the woman's ability to engage or to be involved in the labor force. So research insights and policy implications. Research from sub-Saharan Africa shows that socioeconomic and demographic factors significantly influence the prevalence of female circumcision, but also wealth status emerges as a key determinant, with women from poorer households more likely to undergo the practice and face exacerbated socioeconomic challenges. it has also shown that the more educated a woman is, the less likely she or their family would be to subject their children to FGM. Now, on our recommendations, we have one, to maintain the legal protections. So we recommend that the National Assembly and by extension the government of the Gambia maintain and strengthen the current legal prohibitions of female circumcision or FGM and promote the enforcement of punitive measures against perpetrators. Additionally, legal provisions should prioritize protecting the rights of women and girls who refuse to undergo the practice. Secondly, we recommend that the government and the National Assembly should promote community engagement and education. So implementing comprehensive advocacy programs, including focus group discussions, peer teaching, and mentorship is crucial, and it is essential in enhancing public awareness and in inspiring voluntary abandonment of harmful norms and practices. We appeal to the National Assembly through its members in various constituencies to support efforts at grassroots level to engage with the public to dispel the myths and raise awareness about the harms of female circumcision. The third recommendation is support resource allocation for healthcare and support services. So investing in accessible and culturally sensitive healthcare services for survivors of FGM is imperative. We appeal to the National Assembly to allocate resources to provide comprehensive reproductive health services, psychosocial support, and to implement programs to address health complications resulting from the practice. And the final recommendation is to support research and evidence generation. We need data in this country. A lot of issues that we deal with, especially as gender-based violence advocates, you need data to support your assertions, right? We know that things happen. We have anecdotal evidence, but getting scientific data, such as the one presented by Falo today, is very important. So we are pleading with the National Assembly to task and allocate resources to the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare in collaboration with the Gambia Bureau of Statistics to study these socioeconomic implications and identify linkages between the harmful practice and the country's development trajectory. So to conclude, the socioeconomic implications of FGM underscore the urgent need for comprehensive evidence-based interventions that address the root causes of this harmful practice. The efforts should focus on community engagement, education, advocacy, and policy reforms to eliminate FGM and promote gender equality and sustainable development. By addressing the socioeconomic determinants of FGM, we believe that the Gambia can move closer to achieving its developmental aspirations while safeguarding the rights and well-being of its women and girls. And thank you. Briefly, that's a position paper. We have also shared it with you, or we'll be sharing it with you before we leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Jang, for that submission. I think now we will go to the last presentation before we come back to Mr. Palo and the team. So I will just allow the representative from ActionAid, the Gambia, to do this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, honorable members and honorable subject matter specialists. But good morning to my colleagues from the NGO CSO fraternity. On behalf of ActionAid International of the Gambia, I'm very pleased to be here, of course in solidarity with the team that have come. I'm also very conscious of the time that we have, so I want to say that I will summarize our position because what I've heard from my colleagues are already embedded within our thoughts. ActionAid having a vision of having a world where people living enjoy their right to a life of dignity, freedom from poverty and all forms of oppression is one of the reasons why ActionAid is part of this coalition and advocacy for this ban to stay, for this law to stay. And this is really embedded by the fact that the Gambia has been pursuing the improvement of gender equality, ratified the conventions on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, the Maputo Protocol, and adopted the United Nations SDG goal number 5, which is set to achieve gender equality and empower women and girls. With all this, the Gambia government has gone further Actually, that applauds the government of the Gambia in its past efforts, because we need to recognize that a lot have been done in the past. There are different stakeholders from the government, the development partners, but also supported by the civil society organization. But we also recognize that the Gambia government has done a lot in the past and planned interventions to improve gender equality. And this has been clearly spelled out in the new national development strategy that we have, the Recovery Focus NGBV 2023-2027, which is the current context. Under Chapter 9, Pillar 6, which is empowerment, social inclusion, leaving no one behind. This pillar have 3 key outcomes, and one of which is empowered Gambian women economically, socially, and politically. And it has gone further to have a specific outcome, which is outcome 6.1, which focuses on ending sexual and gender-based violence as a strategic pillar. And if you go further into that, that's where FGM is captured. This national strategy was recently launched, as recent as this year, and it elaborates its critical priority area. So any attempt to repeal the law will be very surprising and will be a departure from our commitment to gender equality and women's empowerment. And it also will go further to affect the country when it comes to indicators that are linked to measurements of human development in the world. And of course, the Gambia is not an exception to these countries. Let's be mindful of that. So, since this gathering is also meant to bring out our position paper, I am here to say that Action Aid International de Gambia strongly opposes any proposal to repeal the ban on female genital mutilation or cutting, or even attempt to plan to medicalize it, based on all the reasons that have already been highlighted by the previous speakers, which I don't have to go through and repeat. But this is also based on our conviction that FGMC constitutes a severe violation of the fundamental human rights of girls and women. And lifting the ban would pose grave risks to their lives and well-being. In a country where 3/4 of the Gambian adolescent girls, we are talking 3/4 because 70+ figures have been mentioned, have already undergone it, even though the law is there. So you can imagine what will happen. Rather, we should be recognizing the fact that there is an urgent need to intensify our efforts to eliminate the practice instead of reversing and going back. That's too detrimental at this stage in the world, but also in this stage of our development, where we have gone back to say we want a new Gambia that is promising to improve on so many things that have not gone right in the past. Please, let's reflect that, because we are representing people, and I think we need to carry them along to understand what it means to have a new Gambia, not just on political, but so many things, including traditional practices that we know have harmful consequences of people. The consequences of legalizing FGMC would endanger the lives, health and future of girls and women, and this will have negative effect on women and girls' empowerment. I think the socio-economic one mentioned it, but even the health factors that came earlier also is linked to this. So the repeal of the ban not only jeopardizes the progress made in combating FGMC, but also sets a dangerous precedent to undermine national efforts to eradicate this form of violence. Because when we have the law and it's still happening, you can imagine when it is lifted, it will be done everywhere, including the states. Let's take note of that. Furthermore, lifting the ban would reverse the hard-won gains achieved through years of advocacy and awareness done by civil society organizations, the government, because Women's Bureau was mentioned, we were together with Women's Bureau on this work, not just the CSOs, and other government organizations. And this will signal significant setback in the fight against violence against women and girls. It will lead to increased prevalence of this harmful traditional practice, endangering the physical and mental health of countless girls and women. The number is already too much, so you can imagine what will happen. Moreover, if the country it will also end up undermining the country's development trajectory, as I mentioned earlier. We talk about a new Gambia, so we want a new Gambia where we are improving on the low indicators. And I think the practice of FGM is one of those key indicators that we are thinking about, especially if we want to be able to report adequately on our commitments on gender equality, as we have signed up to all the others. Actually, International, alongside dedicated civil society partners, as mentioned earlier, because the 54 members actually is part of it, have tirelessly campaigned against this through multifaceted initiatives, which were really done across different sectors, from the community, the religious groups, at the level of the national level, and which also contributed to us having it legalized some years ago. And this we have done in collaboration with all the different partners, including the NGBV, the research mentioned earlier, talked about it. And at this stage in our development trajectory, we expect to build on the gains and not really work on a reversal of what has been achieved in the past. So, to conclude, I really wish to use this opportunity to urge you members, our esteemed members of the National Assembly, to take side with women and girls and maintain the existing legal protections against this harmful practice, recognizing that FGMC has nothing less than an act of violence against women and girls. So many debates have been set, but let's take note of this, especially the violations against the fundamental rights of women and girls, which if it falls down, all other development indicators will not be recognized as much. Because we're talking about a population that is over 51%. It's a big number. We encourage you to prioritize social justice. We also see it on an angle of social justice. Yes, we are not anti-traditional because we come from different cultures. But we also recognize that there are some cultures we find in place that are not positive, some of which we've dropped without query, without fight. So the same thing is what we're asking to be considered on this practice, especially if we have really made them very clear in our recovery-focused National Development Plan, which is expected to be implemented from last year up to 2027. We would want to come back and be able to reflect on our gains, and we want to be able to celebrate as maintaining the law and helping to improve the indicators, and not really have indicators bringing us down. So on this note, I wish to request your honorable members to help us and uphold the ban. Listen to the voice of survivors and advocates. We can facilitate them. Sometimes people don't want to talk in the open, but they can want to talk on a one-to-one basis. But we also request you to prioritize the protection of the well-being and dignity of women and girls in the Gambia. On this note, I thank you and make this my submission. I can leave.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that important presentation. Like I said, we are time challenged, so I will just allow Mr. Falu and his team to show us the images that they want to show the committee. Go ahead.
Yes. We want to take pictures, is it allowed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pictures.
Because this is going live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's going live, you can take it.
It will go live. It is already out there, so you can also take pictures.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
It's evidence-based.
Yes.
It's on this.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Honorable.
Yeah,
good morning, Honorable. Oh, afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair of this committee, National Assembly members present, stakeholders present here today, the subject matter specialist, representative from UNICEF.
Sorry, members, please. Can you focus? Members, hello. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Dr. Babanding Dafe. I'm a senior medical officer, a VVF fellow, and a focal point for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence at Kanifing General Hospital. I've worked as a medical practitioner for 16 years now. I've worked in the labor department of Kanifing General Hospital for 11 years. As part of my work, I do see cases of sexual and gender-based violence. I think Kanifing is the hospital that have registered so far the highest number of sexual and gender-based violence in this country. I also run clinics and also attend to pregnant women and during delivery, and I also conducted over 3,000 surgeries in this country, both cesarean sections and other surgeries. 75% of these cases are women. I'm going to share my experience with you. It is going to be a frank and it's going to be honest one, and it's going to be on my expert opinions. It is not influenced by anything, and I think it's going to benefit all of us. Before I go into the pictures, I think I will go into what I want to do so that you understand very well, and because things will link. If I should jump to the pictures, we will not get the the understanding. The outline of my presentation definition, which I will not waste time on because it's already defined here, I just have to clarify a few things. The classification also, I will try to clarify a few things. I will not go into detail much. The structure of the external female genitalia, we also need to look at it to understand what is being cut, and when it's cut, what is the consequence. Of course, the function of that organ or that part of the that is being cut, also we need to know, to also understand, if you cut that part, what can happen. Of course, there are complications which is in short term, in immediate, and on the long term. Psychological complications, FGMC types recorded from January to April 2024 at Carnifing General Hospital. This is from our Central Delivery Register, because we record them to know the statistics of how many type 1 FGM, type 2 FGM, and then type 3 FGMs, or type 4 or none among women who come into labor. I believe that the register is available in every government hospital where delivery is conducted. Then we have a case study. These are 11 cases that I've attended to. They are not outside cases. These are real Gambian cases, a real case scenario that I personally attended to, and I do some intervention on them with some pictures, but I've also asked their consent before even taking those pictures. Not all agreed, but few that agreed I'm going to share with you. Of course, the situational analysis and conclusion.
So, it is like, for medical ethical approaches, I don't think we will be live accepted if we are live to project those pictures.
Okay. It's on record right now. It's on record, not live. They will upload it later.
What do you mean these people, they have it in their website?
No, these pictures...
They take the consent before that. This
Sorry, my question is, do they consent for you or it to be published?
No, but I use it that this may be shared because we want to have evidence.
What is saying?
Yes.
The names are not there. Nobody names and no address is there. It's only the picture. Okay. No name is there.
No address.
No name, no address, no nothing. No faces, no nothing.
Before you go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I think I concur with Honorable Mbalo for what he just said. They've given him their consent for him to take pictures or videos of what occurred, but they haven't given him the consent for it to be published, because this is viral, everybody is looking at it at the moment. So there are faces that might be within our society and their families might be seeing it, and they might feel discriminated or feel otherwise when this is directly published on social media.
Okay, can I say something? Hello? Order, can I make one thing clear? I believe the images that we are about to see is not showing any face.
No face,
no name, no address,
no face, no name, no address.
It's important. It's important.
You will see it.
So if that is the case, because that is what we are saying as a committee, we want to see the evidence.
Yes, that's what I want to see.
We are nobody to go against that. So present the evidence. And thank you very much, honorable members, for your observation. So, sir, you can go ahead.
Yes,
Madam Jen, you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to offer maybe as a compromise, when it comes to the images, maybe the camera can not record that bit.
No, the camera will not.
Yes, so he can just go with his presentation. The images would be visible to us, but they would not be shown.
No, I'll not take it.
That is how it's supposed to be.
Yes.
Because these are evidences that we are collecting. No, I understand. These are evidence that we are collecting.
Sure.
You understand? And it cannot be out there right now.
Yes.
Yes, that is understanding.
Yes.
Honorable Saleh.
My point would be, why not you not the CIP committee?
This is part of the consultation.
Yeah. He needs to explain.
You can go with this, the angels can see and
You see, I need to explain some of these things for you to understand. It does not carry anybody's name. It does not carry any address, no face.
No face, no nothing. There's nothing that will show.
The face of the person.
Faces or names
Sir, go ahead, please.
Yes, so we go by our definition there, as alluded by the other previous speakers. Female genital mutilation, otherwise known as cutting or circumcision, FGMC, is defined as all procedures that involve the partial or total removal of external female genitalia or other injuries to the female genital organ for cultural, religious, and non-therapeutic reasons. It has classifications, and I said I want to just throw light on because already have been mentioned by Fabio. The excisions, that's type 1, the excision of the prepuce with or without cutting part or entire clitoris is also called the clitoridectomy. In Islamic culture, this type, some would call it as sunnah, but I want to make a clarification here. People tend to compare this type 1 to male circumcision, and I want this committee to be very clear with it as a medical personnel. What is cut on men as compared to type 1 is the prepuce that covers the gland penis. The function of the gland penis is for what? It's sensitive areas, it gives feelings to men. It is compared to the clitoris. And there is something what we call the prepuce, we call hood, that covers it. That hood is the one compared to the prepuce of that of man. So what you cut in man and what you cut in a woman, clitoris is not the same. It is compared to the hood that you cut. In fact, there is a medical indication for that. Some women will have an overgrowth of their hood, we call the prepuce, and they do what we call the hoodectomy, that the clitoris hood reduction, because it covers the clitoris so the woman may not have the sexual desire that's supposed to get. So you expose it. Also, it can harbor some dirt under. To avoid that, then you can trim it so that the dirt does not go under. If you look at that, it's more compared to that of the male, because male also, what is harbor under is a cause infection. So these are the comparisons. So what you cut in women, clitoris is a sensitive part, equal to that of the gland penis. So it means that if we cut the clitoris, we can cut the gland penis of men also, for us to understand what is being cut in women. So this is the comparison. So that's why they said type 1 is compared to. No, if it is only attached to the hood or the prepuce of female, then you can compare, but otherwise not. The type 2.
So the clitoris is the feeling point of a woman, right?
It's just like because of the hormones during the development. So this one comes as a clitoris, and that's why it has a tip, and this one comes as a penis.
It's a short question. I'm answering, and it's very simple.
Hello, can you make a observation? Honorable, before you came, we agreed that we allow the presentation to be finished. You take note, then after you can ask questions.
It's a short question, that's why I asked, and it's very simple and precise.
The type 2 is the partial or entire excision of the labia minor with clitoris. And the type 3 is the infibulation. That is when you cut the prepuce, the clitoris, you also cut the labia minor and even the major. And what happened during this process, I've interacted with so many women. Sometimes when they cut, people think that they stitch. No, they don't stitch. All what they do, they allow the blood to clot there. And they will allow the woman to bind her legs so that there is no wound drainage. And in fact, not only the herbal substance, I've interacted with some women who said tomato paste. Sometimes it's being used even to use them. A girl confessed to me, a lady also confessed to me at the clinic. Tomato paste, that is used for cooking, cannot be used to stop bleeding, cannot be used to seal somebody. But this is how it is. Binding the legs in the morning, some will allow you to sit in the water, but even urinate, they will allow you to stand. During my interaction with women, during some of these procedures when I was conducting, I have to ask questions. So this is type 3. But I have also a slide that shows this type 3, how significant number we have in the Gambia here. If I'm talking about the delivery that are recorded in Carnegie with types of FGMC. Type 4 is unclassified types of FGM, that all other procedure to the female external genitalia for non-medical purpose. And this includes pricking, piercing, stitching, cauterization, scraping, introduction of corrosive or acidic substance, even tobacco. I've interacted with women, they use tobacco to make them tight. But according to this definition, even the use of tobacco in this country is classified as the type 4 FGMC because it's a substance. And with the aim of narrowing that orifice, that's the vaginal orifice, then it's a type 4 FGMC for these members to understand. This is the overview of the female genitalia. We can see all the structures, but there are a few that I will elaborate on. Urethral meatus, that allow the urine to flow outside when the bladder is full. You have the Bartholin gland, that allow lubrication for women to have sexual intercourse. Because if you don't have that lubrication, you tend to have pain. There will be war in the house because the woman will always give herself excuses. I am sick today, I'm not well today, because of the woman cannot lubricate. That Bartholin gland is for that purpose. Then we have a perineum that supports the pelvic organ and separate vagina from the anus. It's very important so that the vagina does not get contaminated with the feces. Then we have labia major that protects the inner structure and the orifice of the female genitalia. Then labia minor also protects the structures and the orifice. Then we have the most important and the most sensitive part, the clitoris. That's where women get their sexual satisfaction and feeling. If you cut, it's equal to cutting the men's gland penis. That is the comparison. You cut, it means you cut the men's gland penis. It's not the prepuce. What you cut in men is the foreskin. And you expose the gland penis. That gland penis also gives men feelings. So that is compared to the clitoris that we're talking about. This is the structure for you to understand that this is what they cut. What is the function of the clitoris? Clitoris assists the woman to achieve sexual satisfaction, one. Therefore, cutting this structure, you reduce the sexual libido and failure to attain sexual orgasm. Of course, some will say, they cut these women so that they don't get pregnant. But in my clinical practice, I have seen more women who are cut get pregnant outside wedlock than those who are not pregnant. Then there is no justification if that is the case. Cutting women that reduce their libido so that they don't get pregnant. I don't think so. I think that is based on the home bringing. The urethral meatus, it allows the emptying of the urinary bladder, and any injury to this structure may result to fistula. I have a case scenario here that came from Bassi, I will share with you. That the Ngasimba cut and developed fistula. Fistula is when you urinate, you cannot control your urine. You wet on yourself anywhere you sit. I have seen this in my clinical practice as a medical doctor. I will share that with you. Vaginal orifice, it allows the menstrual flow. It also sexual intercourse and delivery of baby. Any narrowing of this orifice may cause difficulty in sexual penetration or even delivery of the baby, or even urinary flow. Recently, I have operated on few girls who could not urinate properly or has recurrent infection because of the type 3 FGM, because of the urine flow. There will be urine retention and there will be stasis of the urine. It causes what? Infection to the bladder, to the ureter, and to the kidney. And that can even lead to the kidney failure. Bartholin gland, it lubricates the vagina and allows sexual intercourse. I think every man, for you to enjoy your man, sorry for my language, for a woman to be wet, if that is the function and you do type 3, most likely you can cut that gland. And when you cut that gland, a young lady, you send her into menopause. Because what is women in menopause are the women that does not get wet because the hormones disappear as they goes into their menopause. So this gland is very important for women. Labia minor protect the structure and vaginal orifice. The labia major also protect the inner structure, and the perineum supports the anus from the vagina so that the vagina does not get contaminated with feces. Why this is important? Because if there is a scar, terrible one, there is a tear, and the tear sometimes can extend to the anus, causing a rectovaginal fistula and not vesicovaginal fistula. Though there are two types, where the urine flow you cannot control, or the feces also enter the vagina. When the vagina is narrow, these are the complications. That's why this perineum is very important. It has to be intact. In the complication, we have the short term. One of the short term is the pain. We all know that this procedure is done without any anesthesia. In modern day now, boys will go to the hospitals, they will cut. Even though their circumcision, for me, as a medical doctor, is not compared to female circumcision, because what you cut is different. But it's done under anesthesia. And this one, no, to the circumcised, with pain. Because you cut a structure that has a blood supply and a nerve supply, of course there will be a pain. It has an extensive innervation. So, and also they use instruments which are not appropriate. So, for me, this is a procedure. And any surgical procedure cannot be done crude or cannot be done without anesthesia in this modern day. It's not fair to our young girls. So, and I believe our circumcisers, they are not medically inclined. I don't think they should be in a position to cut. Otherwise, this unnecessary pain we will inflict on our young girls. Bleeding. If you cut a structure that is supplied by the blood, that has a blood supply, a blood vessel, of course there will be bleeding. And this bleeding, I have a life scenario that caused death to a young lady from Tuja in my clinical practice. Was cut and the bleeding could not stop. So because even in our clinical practice operations, there are methods that we use to stop bleeding. We use diatemy, sometimes we use stitches. Those are the methods, because when you cut, always there will be bleeding. And you must stop that bleeding. And you must try to control that bleeding. Somebody who is not medically inclined cannot stop the bleeding. How do you stop the bleeding? By putting tomato paste or putting herbal substance. That cannot stop the bleeding. Or you allow people to bleed until they stop on their own. We believe that some people have a bleeding tendencies because they have a problem with their clotting factors. If you happen to cut that person whose bleeding cannot stop and you don't have any means, could you imagine what can happen? We have so many near misses. I've interacted with some of my colleagues. They save lives of some of these people who are circumcised, some of these young girls. They continue bleeding. They have to admit them for them to be transfused to avoid death. Despite I have registered a death that came from Tugere in my clinical practice in 2015. I will share the slide with you. But the bleeding will eventually occur. How do we stop this bleeding? I have no knowledge. I'm not medically inclined. Then I cannot. I'm causing more harm to the person than good. Injury to the tissues. I've explained to the lady that came from Basse. Of course, because you don't know what you are cutting. You don't know the anatomy. You don't know the physiology. You are cutting blindly. So the woman cut that lady. And any tissues around that area, you just cut blindly. And you cause more harm than good. Because you are not medically inclined. And that's what we are seeing. And also because sometimes it's the old woman who performs have a poor eyesight, is probably old, cannot see very well, or the lighting condition may not even be good. And sometimes the fear of the girl who want to struggle. Because of that, the the risk injury is very high, because the child also will struggle to make sure that he is not circumcised. So injury to the tissues eventually will happen during this procedure. Acute urinary retentions. Some will wonder how can the difficulty urinating occur. Because when you cut, there is a urethral meatus, urethral opening. It's so close. If there is a blood clot that's attached immediately and it stays there for long, you may not be able to urinate. That is called urinary retention. Means urine is in the bladder, but it cannot come out because of that cutting and because of the blood clot that occluded the urethral meatus. This condition can lead to what is called urinary tract infection because the urine stays long in the bladder. Infection is very common as a result of unhygienic condition. We all know where it is cut, it is not clean. We have to be fair to each other. Any surgical procedure has to be done under sterile procedure. It has to be done, even the material you wear. I as a doctor cannot wear this and go to the theater. I have to change completely and would put on gown that undergone sterilization. The material I use to clean also has to be clean. But let's imagine how this cutting is done in the provinces or in our homes or in our community. Of course, the infection will happen because of those sterile instruments, the application of herbal substance on the wound. They will tell them to bind their legs that prevent wound drainage and the contamination of the wound. And the infection may prevent wound healing and may result in abscess, fever, ascending urinary tract infection, pelvic infection, tetanus, and high risk of blood infections such as HIV and hepatitis. All these things can happen during this process. They can happen during this process. These infections are never treated with antibiotics. And it's sad. You cut somebody, you cannot even give antibiotics. You cannot even give pain medication. That's what we are saying. It is not fair. It is not fair. You cannot cut people in this modern day without giving them anything to take, to allow that wound to heal, or to avoid pain. That is mean. That is mean. And sometimes these kids, when they develop those infections, fever, I am from provinces, they will say, so associated with witchcraft. Somebody got sick during that period. They will say, an old woman who will never have a child may be the one, witchcraft, and will be blamed for the alleged, for those eventualities, either the cause of the death or the sickness. We have seen in the provinces those things happen. But because of this infection, sepsis, septicemia, they will develop fever. And anything can happen as a result of that. Failure to heal. If you don't give any antibiotics, it will be difficult for you to heal. Of course, the body has its own soldiers that fight against any infection. But why do, when we operate, we still give antibiotics? Is to speed the recovery, the healing process. But we are not giving here. Then which means the healing process will be delayed. So there will be failure in the healing, and that we will allow also, because you allow them to rub their wounds or legs when walking, this can also lead to a prolonged weeping wound and chronic infected also. Fracture or dislocation. Some people might even break their bones or dislocate it. Why? Some will say, but no, we are not playing football or it's not an accident. But if you try to restrain the young guy who also don't want, and you are hefty, could you imagine what can happen? So this may likely happen because of the heavy pressure. So it can be fracture of the clavicle, the humerus, bones, and dislocation of the... You may not see on every woman, but I always say, do we have to wait until we see every woman have all these complications in the Gambia to say, oh, FGM is bad? No. If you have a significant number, it's quite sufficient. I don't need to. Just like kidney injury. We have about how many children were injured, but how many Gambian kids did not have that injury? But we were concerned. It becomes a public health threat. So the same thing applies to this complication. If you have only few number, it's quite sufficient. Even there is nobody who died in labor as a result of FGM, but it can contribute because of what? The scars, the tear, they can contribute. You may not see anybody directly dying as a result, but the complication, what we are talking about, this complication, who wants to have complication? Nobody. So it is significant that if any woman has a complication, that we are concerned. And not to say we deal with the complication, it's okay to go with the FGM. I think we need to be very careful here. In the long term, difficulty passing urine. This can occur as a result of the damage to the urethral opening or scarring of the meatus. I've said it. When there's a scar, the urine may not flow the way it should flow. There will be stasis of the urine, it will go back to the bladder, to the urethra, and to the kidney, causing the kidney failure. Recurrent urinary tract infection, because there will be infection upon infection. Get better, come back again, because of the stasis of the urine. Pelvic infections, untreated infection, because if the infection is chronic, I work in a clinic where I've seen so many women infertility, and in the Gambia here, from what I have experienced in my clinical practice, that infertility in the Gambia is more associated, number one, with the PID, pelvic inflammatory disease, because it causes fibrosis of the tube and blocks your fallopian tube. If it blocks, your eggs that is released from the ovary cannot pass through and meet the sperm for conception to take place. So it's one of the causes in my clinical experience, what I've gathered, and followed by the fibroid. These are the two leading causes. But fibroid we can deal with, but when the tube is blocked, it's difficult. All what you can do is IVF, or you do the tubal surgery. We don't do tubal surgery here. So you can imagine what this can lead to: infertility. We have seen few in our clinical practice. Keloid scar, slow and incomplete healings of the wound and the post-circumcision infection can lead to the production of excess connective tissues in the scar. Because poor healings and coupled with so many things, there can be this keloid, that is a scar. And this may obstruct the vaginal orifice. Following infibulation, scarring can also be extensive, which may prevent penile penetration during sexual intercourse. So when there is a keloid scar, of course, because the vagina needs to stretch during intercourse, so that can obstruct. You may not get your desired feeling to what you want. And I think when it comes to intimate partner relationship, everyone has a right to have that feeling. We cannot subject the other person not to feel.
I believe this is what we refer to as tooth.
Yeah, tooth, yes, tooth. Keloid is tooth.
Dyspareunia, so painful. I've seen so many women in the month of Ramadan, in December, because these 2 months are very key in the Gambia, in the sense, I consider them as the marriage festival month. Because semesters will come, marry, they will come, give the wife 2-3 days, nothing happened, come to the hospital, call Dr. Daffy. I will come, defibrillate. In the month of Ramadan, it's the same thing. These procedures I have done on and on. Before, I have not even been registering them. But when this bill was introduced from January, from February, March, April, I have registered up to 11 that I have even operated on. So those that I have not been registering, because at that time, there was no issue about it, even though I feel that this is not unfair. But we just defibrillate and they go very day to their husband. Either it will be done by the Ngansimba, again without anesthesia, or by us, either by local anesthesia, or we take you to the theater to put you on the general anesthesia, which I'm going to share with you. So this painful sexual intercourse will happen because of the type of the FGM that they went through. And this can lead to sexual dysfunction, not only for women, for a man too. Because if you try to force to enter, it cannot. Eventually, it will pain you too as a man. So the pain becomes both sides. That's why it's a sexual dysfunction for both men and women. So this happens during when they get married. Of course, there will be problems in the childbirth if they grow like that. Because I've seen in this clinical practice where women get pregnant with only a pinhole. I'm even wondering how you consummate. I have operated that woman cesarean section and I have opened in my clinical practice, which I'm going to share with you to all. So the cysts, abscess, calculus, these are things that may be formed, occluding the vagina. And the clitoral neuroma, they will tell you there's a pain around my clitoral tip that was cut. Even the grown-up I've seen, they will come in. Some will apply right cream for them. Some I will just ask, they say will itch, I'll write some medication for them to stop the itching. But they have clitoral neuroma because of the entrapped nerve. Because the clitoris has a nerve supply. And that makes it so sensitive. Just like the gland penis also have nerve supplies. That makes it sensitive for men to enjoy. So you cut that one. And this one, other one for the man is not cut. It's not fair. Psychological complications, as they grow older, they may see what we call stress. Because when you grow older, and you realize that you are caught, and you come across some of these complications, it's stressful. It's very stressful. We need to interact with women. For us, I have the opportunity to interact with so many women in this country. Because Kanifing, our hospital is located in the most densely populated area in the Gambia. So because of the proximity, yes, many will want to come to us first before they even go to Edward Francis. Yes, they deal with more complicated cases, but most of the cases will come to us first before they go there. So feeling of incompleteness, of course you feel incomplete. Most especially if you are educated and you understand the female genitalia later, at older age, and you realize that how your own look like, you feel incomplete. Then the fear of humiliation and betrayal. Of course, you feel humiliated and betrayed at that time because you can make decisions on your own. Why did this happen to me? You can only know this when you interact with these women. Not only see them at the clinic, write drugs for them. Ask them about their family life, what is happening. Women confess to me, I've given birth to all my kids, I've never felt any orgasm in my lifetime. Some tell them I'm just like a concrete. My husband, I don't even have feeling. I'm not saying this because I want to, or I am saying this. These are words from women during clinics. You don't feel at all. Loss of self-esteem, depression. Of course, these are things that will come. You become anxious. Phobia. When they get married, they feel afraid because of that pain. You don't even want to go to them because if you pain, at the end you are afraid. Sexual intercourse become afraid. You will be taking excuse from your husband. I have a case like that. They came to the hospital. We counseled them. Even though that FGM was not done in the Gambia, and even though, according to some classification, it's type 1A, but that one, I believe, I look at it, it looks like it's only the prepuce that was caught. That may be compared to the male circumcision, but that because of the fear. Panic attack may also result. So if FGM type seen from total deliveries in Kanifing from January to April, we have a central register where all the deliveries are recorded. Whether it's a cesarean section, whether it's a normal delivery, whether it was a breech delivery, whether it delivery turned out to be a episiotomy, whether to increase your vagina size so that you can deliver, or that you have a other. So we call it delivery with the outcomes. So the total delivery we have is 2017. That's from January to end of April. Type 1 FGM account for 392. That's 19.40% of what we registered. And this registration, some will say, oh, they may even make mistake in this registration. These are the midwives who went to the school, learned the anatomy, and they were the one conducting delivery. And majority of them even underwent FGM. I think they are in a position to tell you, this type is type 1 and this type is type 2. So I don't believe that they can confuse as a medical doctor, because they are our lead. They examine women in labor. If there is any difficulty, then they will call the doctor to intervene by doing surgery or other interventions in the labor. So FGM type 2 account for 1,163, 57.7%, 70%. And FGMC type 3 account for 101, that's 5%. And non-FGMC account for 361, that's 17%. So this is the picture for this subduration. So I'm wondering, in the previous year when we have about 6,917 deliveries in our labor ward, and then the 2,885 admissions. So if you can have this picture that we have type 2 FGM, I'm not talking about the dean here, but I'm worried whether actually that is the sunnah, the type 2, cutting that one, the whole of them from our definition. That is too much from what we registered. So I put it into chart form. You can even see it's the same that I put into the chart form. So you can see SVD, these were the one that delivered normal delivery. Of course, normal delivery, but that does not mean that nothing happened. Normal delivery, you can have a tear, a mild tear. It could be mild, it could be moderate, it could be severe. But intervention is done to stop. But you deliver vaginally, so we call that SVD. CS means those who cannot deliver at all. And the type 1 FGMC, you can see, and the type 2 FGMC account for more, and they follow that. So it's type 2, type 1, and then type 3, and none. So this is the picture of what we recorded for evidence purpose. So we go to the case study. This is a case 1. These cases are not from anywhere, they are from Gambia, and nobody attended to them. It's me personally. I don't rely on anybody's record. This is an eyewitness death-rated FGM account registered in 2015. It's a young girl of 5 years old. She was brought to Cardiff General Hospital while I was on duty. According to the relatives, she was circumcised a day prior. Bled the whole night, but they could not stop. In fact, they have a relative in our hospital. When they came with that relative, and still working there. So the bleeding could not stop. And they were afraid because of the law to come. But again, if you have the techniques how to stop the bleeding, maybe that could have been averted. That tells us that circumcisers, we need to be very careful whether they should continue cutting a woman. So there was a sudden loss of blood because you bleed, you bleed, you bleed. As a result, you go into what? Hemorrhagic shock, and eventually died. So when we examined this child, he was dead. I told them he's dead. In fact, at that time, I told them I'm going to report to the police. They kneeled down on that day, plead that the old woman will go and die in prison. These are not like I'm just fabricating. This is this. I was standing in the labor ward in my presence. I examined the little girl. Case 2 is a young lady who is in labor. I could not remember the age, but I remembered it's a fuller woman. Sorry for mentioning the tribe. But I want clarity. Came with the husband. There is a forced pregnancy. She was pregnant fully, but he has a pinhole, vaginal opening. When the midwife saw, they could not see anything. They called my attention. They said, this woman is pregnant, but there is no, because we hear the fetal heart, we checked. It's pregnancy, and she is in labor because she's contracting. So when I came, I examined, I said, there's a pinhole. I said, this is the hole. So the hole, that's why I always tell people, women's pregnancy is not depend on the sexual satisfaction. A mere contamination with hand can make a woman pregnant, not even having sexual intercourse. Or even a towel, that when you wipe yourself, because sperm lives for 72 hours, you can get pregnant with it, not even having sexual intercourse. I have seen case scenario like that. When in my clinical, a woman came to me, got pregnant. Why? This is not bad, but I want to be for you to understand that women can get pregnant without sexual satisfaction. She was romancing with a boyfriend who came from Europe, but they did not do anything. Got pregnant. So when I asked, she said, no, I didn't do anything. Well, she swear everything. I said, you have a boyfriend? She said, did you meet anywhere? He said, yes. Did you romance? Yes. How do you romance? Then they told me, were you naked? Yes. Did the man raise it? I said, that's where you get your contamination. It's a pregnancy from that man. The woman was crying. So it tells you that you don't need to get sexual satisfaction for you to get pregnant. So this woman got pregnant because we don't know the labor duration, and I don't want to take risk to de-infibulate and allow her to deliver, because I believe you have gone through much pain. For me, what could have done is to give you anesthesia in the theater, do the cesarean section, even though it might not be an absolute indication. But because what we went through, I cannot imagine. How long do you stay home? So that's why I did cesarean sections, and I also did the infibulation for further sexual consolation. This is a case that I've attended to in Carnegie. Case 3 also in my clinical practice in 2010 while I was on duty. That was Edward Fancy when I was a young doctor. A woman was brought from Basse. She had a urethral injury. This was caused by a circumcision from the story what I got from the lady. I said, what led to that? Because I have a recurrent infection. Sorry for my local language, Soketo. Went to the Ansimba, and then the Ansimba cut. Because you don't know what you are cutting. Soketo is treated by infection. It's treated by infection, by antibiotics, and not by cutting something. So that led to the iatrogenic fistula, because the urethra was cut, the woman was leaking. And this woman certainly has to undergo fistula repair, because otherwise it cannot heal. You can even feel the hole. So that was bad, because you don't know the anatomy, you don't know the physiology, you don't know what you are cutting. Case 4 is a 17-year-old who presented on the 14th of March. This is very recent. On account of type 2 FGM, she got married, but the husband could not penetrate her. I did the defibrillations under local anesthesia. It depends on the severity, because it's type 2. She was prescribed some antibiotics and analgesics, but the very day, she went back to the husband, because the husband has to consummate. So you can see the trouble and the pain. So if this one should go to the Ngansimba without, I gave local anesthesia, Ngansimba will dim, and some of them go back to the Ngansimba again. They don't go to the hospital. Some will go to the traditional circumstances to defibrillate them if they cannot penetrate. So you can imagine what kind of trauma we are giving to this young lady. Case 5 is a 28-year-old who presented on the 23rd of March, 2014. I think this is in the month of Ramadan. I was breaking my fast, I could receive a call. It said, midwife said, a lady came who could not be penetrated by the husband for 3 days. When we came, I also invited my other colleagues, doctors, who happened to be there. We all examined together. And we realized that it's type 3 FGMC. She was consented and was taken to the theater because it was so painful to do it in the theater. You cannot do it on the local. The infibulation was done. It was given analgesics and then also vaginal gel to ease further sexual engagement. So in the next slides, this is what I've said. This is the woman. You can see the hole down there. But you can see the bruises that, those are the ones the husband was trying to penetrate. This is horrible. This is Gambian. This is Gambian. This is not Sudan. This is not Kenya. I am not telling about, this is not like somebody sent to you. I perform this procedure. If this is my hand, I perform. This is in theater.
You mean, sorry, this is a girl?
This is a lady, 28-year-old.
Thank you.
I did this procedure, and this is March. Case 6. It's a 2-year, 6-month baby who was brought by the mother on account of difficulty passing urine and pain at the clinic, painful urination. On examination, she was type 3 FGMC. She was taken to the theater on the 2nd of April 2024, defibrillation, on the general anesthesia. She was given antibiotic, but this child was taken twice. According to the mother, it was the grandmother who took. When they took, they said it's not clean. And they have to take her a second time from the mother's mouth. So this is the FGMs. This is the second time when they cut. You can see the hole down. You may not be very visible. That small little hole down is the one. So this is completely old. This is a Gambian girl. 2 years, 6 months. If you don't, because the urine is not flowing the way it should flow. This is bad. This is not like from any other country. This is Gambia. So should we wait for every Gambian woman to have this and to say FGM is bad? The way they cut a woman is bad? No, I don't think so. This is the issue I've discussed with the imam when they invited me. I have a discussion with them. I said, maybe you will see only one woman what you will marry. But what about the rest? We are the one, the clinicians, who can say, this is what we are seeing, because we see them on a daily basis. So this is the procedure I did. I did this procedure under general anesthesia. Some will say, why do you have to do it? But because the urine flow it's difficult for urine to flow. So you must open for girl to be related properly. So this is my hand. Case 7 is a 6-year-old who presented with painful circumcision scar. It's a clitoral neuroma, as I told you, because of the entrapment and some difficulty passing urine. She was type 3 FGMC. She was taken to the theater on the 14th of April 2024 under general anesthesia for defibrillation. She was given antibiotics and analgesics, and she was also on follow-up. She is okay now. This one I could not take the pictures because of the consent issue. As I told you, I will take consent before we take pictures from anybody or from the parents. Case 8 is a 21-year-old who was presented on the 16th of April 2024 on account of difficult sexual penetration. She was type 3 FGMC. She got married, but the husband could not penetrate her. She was defibrillated under local anesthesia because it's her own, she was able to tolerate.
Yes,
She was given.
Doctor, I just want to bring to your attention. We are already out of time.
Okay.
But
Very soon.
Yeah.
Very soon.
Just
So type 3 is a lady who presented with FGMC type 3 on the 28th of April 2012. She got married also, but there is a difficult sexual penetration. Under general anesthesia, she was also defibrillated. So this is the lady. You can see the type. Honorable.
Honorable, you can see this.
This is type 3. So this is the Gambia. This is not outside. So that's why I said we need to interact with these women and see what they went through, rather than we, the men, sit outside and say this is type 1 we do here. Because you are not seeing it and you don't participate in the activity. We sit in a house or at the bantaba and the women will be doing the thing. But the way they do it, we don't even see it. So we cannot justify that the type 1 that we are doing in the Gambia. So as I said, we cannot wait to see every woman to go have this, to say this is bad in the Gambia. I did the procedure again upon we see the tear up. That is a scar up. The very day I have to go to the husband, that night again. Case 10 is a 31-year-old lady who presented with the history of FGM, difficult penetration. She was type 2 FGMC. Under local anesthesia, she was also defibrillated. This was 30th of April 2024. So case 11 is a 30-year-old who presented with a month history of difficult and painful sexual penetration. However, on examination, she has a normal external genitalia with type 1E circumcision. As I said, that is compared to what is cut in men. That is when you cut the prepuce. She was counseled and was given assurance. They were prescribed vaginal gel. And this is it. You can see the clitoris is not cut. You can see it. So which means it's only the prepuce, the top was cut. That does not affect. This is a Guinean, but her own was done in Guinea. But they live in the Gambia. So I counseled them, gave them assurance, and they were fine. I brought this for you to also appreciate what I am saying. Not only bringing the ones that are cut in that way, but even the ones that they cut that equal to the male circumcision, that is type 1A, according to some classifications. Situational analysis, I'm just rounding up. There's a research that was done. Falu said it, I don't want to go back there, but that shows, the finding shows some obstetric outcomes. Those are the hemorrhage, bleeding, cesarean section, increased weight, and also the risk of perineal tears and so forth. So this study is the same study that we're talking about. I think they will provide that study and the findings. So my personal experience as a medical doctor for the past 11 years at the OBGYN department, that's the labor ward, FGMC has caused a lot of negative health consequences on the life of the Gambian woman. Until recently, because I was not even registering this, I started recording complicated cases of FGMC. Many newly married women have sought my service to unseal them because their husband could not penetrate them. And this procedure, de-infibulation, is done either under local anesthesia or at the labor ward or at the theater and the general anesthesia, respectively. Some of these women will go back to their husband the very day for consummation, immediately, even if they are caught by the Gansimba, without anesthesia. So it's happened more in Ramadan and also in the month of December. So looking at the current situation as a country, and some of these complications that I mentioned here, forget about what the other countries are showing us. An old woman who cut without any surgical knowledge is not medically inclined. We have to understand this. On sterile condition in which the procedure is performed, because you cannot tell me that condition is sterile. At home, you don't wear gloves. You cannot tell me that condition is sterile. It's on sterile condition. Lack of use of anesthesia to avoid pain, because we don't give them anything to avoid pain. Use of unsterile crude instrument. The instrument we use are never sterile. The instrument we use in the hospital has to undergo a process of sterilization. You don't only clean them with the bleach, you put them in the machine, then you can use them. The use of herbal substance and sometimes even tomato paste for cooking, because I know only tomato paste for cooking. And the lack of use of antibiotics. This is not a joke. My colleague told me when she was circumcised, it's the tomato paste they use on her. She was not lying. So I believe. And another lady, who was my client, also confessed to me, her daughter. She was crying on that day. In fact, she also confessed that one of them, who was looking for a child for that long, happened to go there and was also circumcised, while they were dancing, not knowing that that child passed away. Yes. This is a confession to me. The lack of use of antibiotics, yes, we don't use any drugs to help them heal well, put the lives of our women at a very high health risk if we look at this situation. Therefore, as far as FGMC is concerned in the Gambia, and based on my clinical experience, the harm far outweighs the benefit. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Is it also possible for you to see this with the class? Yeah, because I believe it will also help. So in that regards, I will just open the floor. Like I said, we are time challenge to the honorable members. We can ask our questions and they will respond. Then from there we close this meeting. Honorable members, now the floor is open for any question based on their submissions.
Yes. Thank you, Coach. I want to thank our able presenters.
Out of that, so is it ask questions one after the other, or
No, at least
No, but there are 3 or 4 presentations.
The round can still come back again. Because otherwise, you will exhaust the whole discussion.
And we will spend more time.
No, I think whoever is given the floor to ask his question, it depends on the people to note down their spot. Because you cannot just be giving them power. Ask your question.
Ask your question, that's fine?
No, it's not fine. Different presentation. You cannot limit my question. Limit my question. Because there are presentation, each presentation after question. How can you say that I don't ask? What I'm saying.
Just go ahead. Just go ahead.
No, it's not okay. What I'm saying, you are giving you have a question, you have issues. At least give us 2 questions and allow other people to ask 2 questions. Without you still come back.
Yeah, but we have to ask questions.
You have questions. All of you. No. I'm just asking.
No, it's not.
No. He's asking. I am giving the members the floor. No questions.
How many questions per member?
At least 2 questions.
No, what I mean, there are different presentations.
So what you want to ask?
So you can also like the chair. So
that is a proposal.
Yeah,
put it on the floor.
Who I said the family is given that the family all have
No. We just allow members to ask 2 questions. Then we close the meeting. So if any member have any question to ask, you can ask. If you don't, I will just ask the stakeholders to leave. Is that okay?
Yeah.
If you have any question, can you please ask? If you don't, I can gladly ask them to leave. No questions?
Thank you so much, Chair. I think my question will go to young woman. Perhaps this might not be part of your presentation, but it's important for me to ask this question. That is to say, you've been dealing with young girls. Since you started your work, part of your engagement, what percentage of girls have you engaged that are considered to be survivors in this country, through FGM in this country, and what has been their perspective about the first FGM in the Gambia?
I think you can hear me without the mic.
Yes.
Yeah, you can project.
Okay. So in our work, we have not necessarily conducted any scientific study to determine how many girls that we've worked with have been subject to female genital mutilation. But based on conversations that we've had, especially in terms of difficulties that they have when they're going through their periods, because a lot of the girls that we work with are school-going age, teenagers. We had this mentorship program that involves us having counseling sessions, but also teaching them other life skills. So based on the conversations that we've had with them, we can safely say that a lot of them have encountered or have been subject to some form of FGM. But to state an exact figure as to how many it is, we were unable to do that at this point. Yes.
Chair, there are 3 or 4 different presentations, and each presentation has a question therein. I should be given a chance to ask my question for clarity. We are on a dialogue. Yes, I'm going to proceed. I'm going to start with Child Protection Alliance. No, listen.
Before you go further, I just want to clarify.
These are direct questions,
yes.
And we need clarity. At the beginning, you said we allow presentation to go on, then questions come. So if you are limiting me to 2, you don't limit me to 2 questions. Allow me to ask my questions. Because I need it for Babanding, I need it for Faru, I need it for Lani. This man, I need to be clear. So you cannot say 2. You cannot make a decision. We are co-chairs. You cannot make a decision. Let's make a decision. We are co-chairs. It's my right. It's my fundamental right to ask, to be clear. I am not going to make comment, but questions. You should say questions, straight to questions. Please, can I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Fati. My first question is going to you.
No, it's okay.
Mr. Fati, I want to ask you about fundamental human rights. Which you said is a right of a girl. We need to protect them. Now, what I'm saying is, since you are dealing with children, now male circumcision, are you not also considering that? Because since you're talking about inflicting the pain, do you understand? Do you also advocate that pain too? Because it's a right. Now, my other question is on FARM, Network Against Gender-Based Violence. Now, thank you for providing us with the research. And I have to salute you since our engagement. This is the first time I've been seeing such a presentation. But I have a question. When we say clinical research, does this research go through standards, clinical standards? Now, the other question is on Mr. Duffy. Mr. Duffy, don't you think certain penetrations, they are difficult to be penetrated because men also, if their penis are not strong, they cannot penetrate. Hope is not their fault too. Yeah? Do you make any research to see that whether it's lack of strong penis or emotions also? Yeah? You need to come up. Now, the last question that I have is your case 4 and case 5. Yeah, your case 4 and case 5. Can you at least throw more light on that? I'm not much clear of what you talk about that. Thank you.
Okay.
Are you going to allow them to answer?
No, they will respond.
Okay.
Go to the case.
So that we can.
Doctor. So case 5.
Yeah, can you take the floor and just respond to these questions?
4 and 5.
As quick as possible, please.
Yes, case 4, this is a case that I saw, and it was on the 14th of March 2024 on account of type 2 FGM. As I told you, I don't call them. People will call me or they will come to the hospital because you are given to your husband, you cannot penetrate. Those are the only situations we see that. And of course, this one was also married, but the husband could not penetrate. This is the information you got because they come with the husband, usually. Or sometimes the husband will not come, but they will come with either the mother or some sister or somebody will penetrate. But this is the information you will get. Then you will also do your examinations. When you realize that when it's type 2, type 3, obviously you need to defibrillate. And of course for this one, that's what we did under local anesthesia. If it is type 3, it's very difficult. Usually we have to go to the theater. And this one we do it at the labor ward. That's why it is under local anesthesia. So I've made mention you can do it under local anesthesia, you can do on general anesthesia. That's the theater, depending on the severity. Because you want to avoid pain as much as possible on this woman. Already, the husband tried to penetrate and then could not. That trauma already has started. So we don't want to add more trauma to it. That's my question. Case 5, this one, in fact, they obstructed my breaking of fast. My wife, I think, cooked a very nice one. And the call came when I was seated. That was after Timis. So I told them that I have to break fast. So immediately after breaking fast, I just enter my car. And these are resources that nobody pre-funded. It's out of my salary. And my salary is not for that. My duty is when I'm at the hospital, I do this. But I believe that I'm somebody who believes or who wants to promote the sexual and reproductive health right of the women of this country. I know women go a lot in this country. I've been in labor ward, I know what they go through. So that's why some of the time, I don't even have to look at the financial or the spending, what I'm going to from my pocket. I went there and I did not ask for anything. Of course, as Gambians, sometimes people want to, because they are happy, want to do good, but that can come once in a while from their own gesture. That can happen. But she was taken to the theater. When we examined, it's not only me. So luckily, there was another doctor, 3 of us examined. And this is what we saw. You can see. You see that bruises too. That's where the penis was touching. So I'm sure if the penis is weak, to answer that first question, this man will not have caused that bruise. Because there will be no erection. But look at this, he was trying to enter. The hole down, that is where the blood flows, and that's where the urine flows. If you open like this, you will see the urethral opening. So that's what we did here. We open everything.
I think he also asked a question to Mr. Palo.
Yes, so your main weakness, of course there can be. As I was saying, even weaknesses of men, for us to understand, you can be weak, but still you can pregnate, depending on how good your sperm is. So that does not also determine, to be strong does not also determine the woman getting pregnant or getting pregnant from you or from the husband. No, it doesn't determine. It depends on how good your sperm is. Of course, the satisfaction, that one comes from you have to be strong. I think I've answered your question.
I will engage you later.
Okay, you are welcome. I would love if National Assembly members, gender health, want to come to Kanifi. And we have a central register to appreciate all this recording. You go through the register, see yourself. Type 1 and 2, how it's recorded. You come to our clinic also. Maybe you may interact with one or few women. They may share their story with you. It's very important. The women don't usually come out to the media and talk about these things. But silently they are going through. A lot of them. It will be a disaster if every woman in the Gambia going through this. May God forbid. So we don't have to wait.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Palo?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Saho, for that question. Yes, yeah.
Can you help this one?
Close it. Yes, it's Thank you, Honorable Saho, for that question. I would say yes, it has underwent the necessary standards, and this was why it was even published in an international journal, because even in the Gambia, all the procedures that was need to be done for the clinical research to be accepted and also be published was done. So it was approved by the council or committee that was responsible for research in the Gambia, and was done by competent, personnel. That's why in my position paper, I made mention of the doctors. I made mention of those who were the trainers and everywhere and their specialization. And it is there in the report. Their names are there. Their specializations are there to show you also as well. Thank you.
CPA. Thank you, Honorable Saho. And mine, I think, is a very simple one. That why the issue of male circumcision is not classified as a human rights violation. So the issue here, when we talk about the issue of human rights, we're looking at an entitlement as fundamental right. Now, all the presentation that has been made here, they cited one thing. There's a violation when it comes to the issue of health. That we have seen the implications that when a woman is circumcised, these are the complications that the person will have. And unless and until proven scientifically that when a man or a boy undergoes circumcision, it has health complications, then we raise the issue that it has compromises that provision that guarantees the right to health. Without providing that, basically you cannot qualify that as human rights violation.
Traditional people believe to death in traditional male circumcision, like he said. It's because at the time it was done in a way that there was no anesthesia, and people believe to death. I suffered when I went to circumcision. If I should tell you my story, you would not believe. You can bring it. So that, what I say is human right. like it should be a choice. Like if you ask me at that age, I would say I'm not going to circumcision. You see how they struggle to catch us when we want to go to circumcision.
You know,
they pull our leg, it's the same.
Don't worry.
it's not. It could
So if I have a choice, I will not go.
Honorable, may I also help?
No, I think that is not it, Mr. Falu. Let us not prolong this conversation. Can we allow member? Pardon, yes. He asked for the floor first. So after he is you.
Thank you so much. My question has to go to Falu. Falu, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Falu. Okay. Mr. Falu, what will you say to this, or to the people who are saying this? FGM is a borrowed word.
It's a borrowed word.
Oh, yeah, it's not a Gambian. They say that in the Gambia here, we circumcise. Yeah. We don't mutilate, so can you tell me the difference? And then the other question will go to my sister. Is it young what? Exactly. Yeah, okay. You've talked about the indiscrimination or discrimination towards the people who did not go under female circumcision or cutting, as you say. Can you share with us the areas in which this discrimination are happening? Because of understanding to the area where I come from, we don't normally know those who went and those who did not go. And then it doesn't bring any conflict in our society. But I'll be very happy if you can bring me or explain to us so that we can understand the level of discrimination that we are trying to explain.
The word Solima
is not discriminating.
No,
very discriminating.
Before you answer,
depends on the nomenclature.
members, please, order.
I mean,
Order, Chair.
yeah, he should not talk.
Co-chair.
She's there to respond.
Co-chair. For the issue of Solima, I just want to intervene. I believe Jaha will agree with me. Jaha Dukri. The last time we met one of the scholars, one of the imams in Banjul, he made it very clear. And that was the first time I heard about the meaning of Solima, as you said. He said Solima was not like Solima, it was Salima. And Salima was used by then, by the Arabs, to differentiate which women went through FGM, or circumcision rather, or didn't go through circumcision. So if they call you Salima, meaning you didn't go through FGM, I'm sorry, female circumcision. So he was able to clarify that to us. And I believe also it makes sense. But like the saying goes, locally, it is like Solima, and in Mandinka, you know, it is kind of discriminatory. But I just find it very important to clarify this for your information. I was not there alone. I was there with Madame Dukure, and I believe she can attest to that. And I believe in that story. Yes. Just for clarity, huh? You can go ahead. Let them answer. You can respond to the question, then
So,
no, you can go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So, to build on what you said about the term Solima or Salima, we all agree that the origin of the word was not derogatory per se. But I think it would be important for me to give personal experience as a woman or someone from a tribe that does not practice female circumcision or FGM. I personally have had that word used to describe me in a derogatory and discriminatory way, because the community within which I lived, female circumcision was generally practiced. It was the norm. So we were basically the exception. And we have had numerous encounters where this word was used to reference to us. Not directly, but the way it is said or the act in which they were doing it, you know that this is referring to you, right? So for example, if after an FGM or female circumcision ceremony, the celebrations are going on, your house, for example, is the only house where uncircumcised girls live, and then the celebrations are being done in front of your house, and the singing is going on, where are the solimas? How would you interpret that, right? So these, and this will connect to the response to you, Honorable. Like I said in my presentation, a lot of these issues, we may not have scientific evidence to prove, but we have anecdotal evidence based on our personal experiences and based on the experience of the survivors that we've spoken to. So the discrimination issue, one of the examples that we gave was for women who have undergone FGM and have now decided that their children would not be subject to it. They dare not now take their children, and we have someone who, if there is a need to, I believe they may be willing to present their story to the National Assembly. Because of the fact that they have refused to now subject their children to circumcision, their children are discriminated against within the families, to a point where they don't feel safe enough to take their children to their traditional homes, because they know the moment they do that, that child will be subject to FGM. We've also seen survivors share stories on social media, and one that comes to mind was of a woman who said she had sworn that she would not circumcise her child. The moment she traveled outside of the country to work, her child was stolen by some family members and subject to circumcision, right? So if the child is not circumcised, if you're fortunate enough to not have your child subject to circumcision, they will be discriminated against within their family members, because you have people who have undergone that practice. Personally, I also have some family members who subject themselves to FGM because within the community that they lived in at the time, they were being discriminated against by their peers. They couldn't take part in certain activities. They couldn't go certain places, especially when the celebrations are going on. We've also received survivor story of a woman who had to subject herself to FGM because her child was being circumcised, because she married into a family that practices. Her child was being circumcised. She wasn't allowed to see her child because she wasn't circumcised. What was the solution? She felt forced to subject herself to the practice. So these are the types of discriminatory issues that we have observed anecdotally. Scientific evidence we may not have, but if we're honest to ourselves, these are stories that, well, among women we hear very regularly. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. He asked another question.
Where is the...
Can you repeat, please?
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable. And I think my honest opinion is this is just based on semantics, what people understand and think of the words. Whether you use FGM, female genital mutilation, FGMC or FGC, female genital cutting, or FC, female circumcision, we are referring to the same thing. It depends on people and where they are. For instance, in the Gambia, majority of our communities would say female circumcision because that's what we are known. And that's why if you look at the Women's Amendment Act 2015, you will see that female circumcision is what is used to depict what our communities are using. But go to the definitions there in the law, and you will find out that it is the same as the FGMC that is said in other parts of the world. Thank you.
Okay, so please, to address that, just 1 minute or less than 1 minute.
Yeah,
you see, circumcision is a general term. In the process, you either cut or mutilate, those are semantics. If you cut, there will be bleeding, and your vital structures will be cut, whether you mutilate and cut. So people play with the word, but it's virtually the same. Circumcision is the general name, and this one is the procedure that you cut.
Partial and total.
What? No, that is the type.
In the types.
The more if you cut, you mutilate, it's the same thing. The blood will come. The tissues will be the one you cut. The tissues will be the one you mutilate.
Thank you.
So it's semantics.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you, doctor. Honorable, can you add your question?
Thank you very much.
Leave the other one.
And first, Coach, I have to thank the invitees for the brilliant presentations they've made, even though the committee hasn't concluded anything on it yet, because we're still going with the investigations or the fact findings. But we have to thank you. And this first question will go to Dr. Dafe. Dr. Dafe, throughout your career, was there any FGMs or circumcision that you've dealt with? Was there anybody subject to a non-pregnancy due to FGM? That's one question. Like the person, there is likelihood that the person might not be pregnant due to FGM that she has conducted. And the second question is with regards to the maternal mortality. You know, we've been finding out throughout, especially myself, throughout my tenure for now in Parliament, since I came to this Parliament, you know, the case of maternal mortality, causes of it, we've been finding out. Whenever we stand at the floor of the Parliament or the chamber, We've been mentioning this because we want to know the cause of maternal mortality, and still we are trying to find out what is the cause of this maternal mortality. So in your career, was there any case that you've undergone that the maternal mortality might be the cause of FGM or C? Thank you.
Yes, the first question, whether infertility, I would call it, frame it that way, is caused by the FGMC, infertility, because not be able to bear a child means infertility. We did not do any research to say the infertility, but I am telling you, from my clinical experience, majority of the women who have infertility in this country is due to tubal blockage. And tubal blockage is caused by infection. Because of the fibrosis, the tubes get blocked. It could be contributing factor, but research has to be done to that level to know, of course, how many of these women underwent FGM and how many did not undergo FGM, to be able to relate. Until that is done, then you may not be able to tell. But I am telling you, the cause of infertility in this country is due to infection. So FGM could be a contribution. It may not be total. To your second question, mortality, whether FGMC-related mortality, I think you have to look at the intervention though. For example, the woman I presented here in labor is closed. If that woman happens to be in Sarapati, could not have anything to go to the hospital, what do you think could happen? You try and rupture bleeding and die. So intervention prevents some of those things. We are worried about the complications. If we reach mortality, it's a disaster. We don't even need to reach mortality, to be candid. Complication is enough. Those complications, we deal with them. That's what we want to avoid. If a woman happens to be in a place where you cannot get the service, in my village has no doctor, it will be bad. And that intervention needs to be done. And some places are so remote. Maternal mortality in this country, it has a long tail. Sometimes it depends on the woman herself, whether she should get pregnant or whether she should not get pregnant. Pregnancy is not like you jump and get pregnant, no. That's the problem of this country. Certain underlying medical conditions, when you have, they cannot go with pregnancy. And that needs to be checked. But here, unfortunately, no. Women are, sorry for my language, are termed as unconscious factor. Produce. That's not the case. You need to check yourself whether you are fit for pregnancy. Also, of course, the family support and then the spouse support. Women don't even have money to go to the clinics. They stay at home. BP is high. All these things are dangerous in pregnancy. So it's a chain. Of course, the community. Is there any even mobility in the community? Is there any community support? No. Yes, at our level, of course, sometimes there are delays or materials are not available. That's beyond some of us as a doctor. If things are not, but that is everybody. That's the central government, all of us. But, of course, the delay happens. But sometimes also where you are seeing the first point of care, there's a delay in referral. So it's a long chain. And that's a topic of discussion on its own. We can take the whole day. But obviously, I haven't seen any FGM done because somebody died. Because we do the intervention, you may not likely see those deaths, for you to understand. I think I've answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. So I allow honorable member for you.
Thank you so much, stakeholders. I'm so happy seeing you here. It doesn't mean that we know everything. And I am also glad that someone brought a bill like this. I think without this bill, we would have not known the things we see here. Doctor, thank you for taking my brain back to my subject, which is biology, chemistry, general science, and physics. You have educated us, all of us here. And I want to ask a question. Don't you think because of ceilings, because when women are practicing this circumcision, some old women always practice these ceilings. The pictures you saw us here, don't you think it's because of ceilings, those women are just like that? I want to know about that. And I know outright that they cannot achieve that ceilings without practicing FGM. So what can we do as representative of Gambians? We want to know We are here for the people. We are here for the betterment of the Gambia. And we really want you to acknowledge us more and more. I'm talking about this feeling. You were talking about feeling, I think. Feeling on pleasure, like the way others say, on women. So are you telling us that a circumcised woman don't have feelings? I want to know about that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
First question is the ceiling. Ceiling does not occur in isolation. You have to cut the tissues. Those two tissues have to touch each other for the ceiling to occur. Without that, you can never seal. How would you seal? It's only when you take, for us, we can do by taking a suture, localize and seal. But that will not seal you. For you to seal, there must be a cutting on two parts, and those parts will come together for sealing to happen. And some method is used, that is the blood clot, and some of the herbal or material they use to stay there and avoid wound drainage. This is the cause of the skin. I don't know whether I've answered that question. So the second question is pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure.
Women can get pleasure from so many places. You can get it from your mouth. You can get it from your breast. You can get it from your hair. You can get it from your people. Yes. So there are many. But the most sensitive part when it comes to sexual pleasure, the most sensitive part is the clitoris. I said if you cut, depending on how you cut, there's a decrease in the sexual libido. Decrease in the sexual libido. I think that's qualified. I don't say that you don't at all get the feeling. But there's a decrease in the sexual pleasure. So my worry is if you happen to cut type 3 and the Bartholin gland is cut, there cannot be any lubrication. And when there's no lubrication, there is pain. So when there is pain, there cannot be any pleasure.
We have lubricant oil.
Well, I believe everybody would want to have natural. I believe for everyone to have natural. Of course, I give them gel. Even me, I give them gel. I even jokingly give name to that girl I will call it Birelma, Topatoma. I give that name funnily to them, just to interact with women and know their problem. But we do give gel. But I want people to be natural. Who don't want to be natural?
Thank you very much, Doctor. I think, like I said, we are time challenged. This is very interesting. And as I said in the beginning, this is a very important process in what we are doing in terms of preparing our comprehensive report at the end of the day. But before closing the meeting, I would just want you to make some clarity, because you mentioned about the types of FGM and you mentioned about type 1A. So are you affirming to us that there is type 1A, and if there is type 1A, there must be type 1B?
Yes.
And type 1C if possible?
Yes.
So can you please just clarify on that?
There are different classifications. Some say type 1, 2, 3, 4. Some say type 1A, B, and C. Type 1A is when you cut only the prepuce. Type 1A. Type 1B is when you cut the prepuce and the tip of the clitoris. And the type 1C is when you cut the whole of the clitoris. So that type 1A, and the picture I saw you there, I believe probably that's what they did for that lady, which means it's only the prepuce that is cut, and that prepuce is more compared to the prepuce or the foreskin that is cut on men. So that's the one you can compare, but not the cutting the clitoris. It means if you cut the clitoris, you cut the gland penis. That is more compared.
Thank you very much for that clarity, because I think it is very important.
Yes.
Like
it depends on some
type 1
institution. There are different classifications. But what I use here was WHO classification. I brought that one because of that case.
Okay.
Because the way the case was, that's why I brought it. But that was not in Gambia. It was even circumcised.
Thank you. So I will just allow my co-chair to.
Just a short one. I want to know whether this type 3 fall on those who practice this sealing.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. No. Type 3 fall under that. This type 3 is the sealing.
Yes. Okay.
So go ahead.
All right. Thank you, honorable members, and thank you, our able witnesses. I think today's engagement is very fruitful. We have a lot of materials to interact with. And those who did not have a position paper, maybe you can use the secretary's email to send it to the email. And I believe today's engagement has made us to understand and we be prepared for any debate at any corner. This is something, me, I'm from a cultural background. I'm a Muslim, but I'm not good in Islam and Christianity or whatever it is. But from a strong cultural background, we believe at the end of the day, we'll be able to analyze and come to a conclusion, and we all know that we have a cause to fight. That's our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. I think in that regard, we are bringing the curtain up here, but I will also want to seize the opportunity to once again thank each and every one of you that answered to our call as a committee, as a joint committee rather, for this important process, that is the consultation process that we are ongoing right now. So in that regards, I will, on behalf of the entire committee, thank each and every stakeholder present here. And we also hope and believe that even in the near future, we will have more consultation, because part of what we are going to do is also to conduct public hearings. And if we are to conduct public hearings, we will also believe that we'll be expecting you on those, community level, because it is very important. As lawmakers, we are making laws for the Gambian people. We are not making laws for our individual interests. So it will be very important for them also to tell us what they think and how they feel, and some of the things that they are going through right now in terms of FGMC. So in that regards, thank you so very much for coming and having a very successful meeting with the committee. So I will just seize the opportunity to allow you to leave now. So honorable members, we can